On Christmas Eve of 2015, British man Carl Langdell, aged 26, killed teacher Katie Locke, aged 23, and assaulted her dead body at a Hertfordshire hotel. They had met online through the dating site Plenty of Fish and were on their first date. Pathologist Charlotte Randall depicted the assault as powerful and drawn out. Langdell was serving a suspended sentence for threatening to kill 2 individuals, and Locke was unaware of that aspect. The man was reportedly dated multiple women across multiple websites. According to BBC's report, Langdell had a history with police and mental services. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Philip Joseph described Langdell as emotionally unstable, adding that he had psychopathic disorders. Langdell pleaded guilty to killing Locke, and in 2016 he was jailed for life with a minimum term of 26 years. On February the 11th of 2021, at Wakefield Prison Maximum Security, Langdell was discovered dead in his cell with severe neck injuries. Number 9. Danielle Finley Jones. On December the 18th of 2022, a 31-year-old teacher at the New South Wales Department of Education, Danielle Finley Jones, was found dead at her friend's Cranebrook home in Western Sydney. She had a bloody nose, distinct finger impressions on the throat, and bruising to her face. She'd recently connected with a 33-year-old tradesman, Ashley Gaddy, on a dating app. Police reported that Finley Jones had attended a social event the night before, on December the 17th, and introduced Gaddy as her new partner. Later that night, the pair stayed together at a place belonging to 2 of the woman's friends. Early on the next day, December the 18th at 3 a.m., one of the residents woke up to what was described as loud, intimate relations between the couple. Police reported that Gaddy left the residence later that morning. Until 2:30 p.m. of the same day, Finley Jones's friends hadn't seen the new couple. Shortly afterwards, Finley Jones was found dead, lying on her back on the floor of the bedroom. Despite the fact that emergency personnel were called to the location, the teacher couldn't be revived and was pronounced dead at the scene. Authorities were led to suspect Gaddy based on surveillance footage, forensic evidence, lawful telephone interceptions, and information from witnesses. Following a police operation in Wentworth Falls, Gaddy was arrested at about 12 a.m. According to a statement released by New South Wales Police, he was then transported to the Katoomba police station and charged with murder. 2 months later, Gaddy appeared at Penrith local court and the case was adjourned until April the 28th of 2023. The accused killer had not applied for bail, as reported by NCA Newswire on March the 3rd of 2023. Number 8. Priscilla Castro. 32-year-old Priscilla Castro of Vallejo, California, was en route from Oakland to nearby Vacaville on August the 16th of 2020 to have her first date with a man she'd met online. Unreachable for 2 days, Castro was reported missing by her family on August the 18th. Her burned body was subsequently discovered on September the 2nd in the Stebbins Cold Canyon area. On September the 11th, Castro's alleged date, 29-year-old Victor Ceretino, was arrested and charged with her murder. He was held without bail. According to Winter Express, Ceretino allegedly tried to cover up evidence of the murder, and he ignited what became known as the Markley Fire on August the 18th of 2020. The Markley Fire combined into a large complex of wildfires that devastated much of the wine country area. After the fire spread to Pleasant Valley in El Dorado, California, 82-year-old Douglas May and 64-year-old Leanne James Bones died as their homes burned down. Ceretino was charged with arson for starting the Markley Fire and 3 counts of murder. Number 7. Bobby Scott. On the evening of January the 23rd of 2021, a 20-year-old Florida man named Michael Harris Jr. was detained on a murder charge in connection with the death of 63-year-old Bobby Scott. The latter was last spotted leaving his home at about 11:30 a.m. on January the 17th. When Scott's husband reported him missing, the authorities thought he might have visited the Orlando region. Using OnStar technology in Scott's car, officials tracked the vehicle and discovered it in Harris's possession in DeLand, Florida, 2 days after he disappeared. Harris claimed that Scott had loaned it to him. According to deputies, Harris added that he had not had communication with Scott since then. When detectives spoke with Scott's husband, he said that he'd never loaned anyone his car. Later, when the vehicle was recovered, law enforcement discovered Harris's bloody fingerprints inside. The Volusia County Sheriff's Office reported that Scott's body was eventually recovered in an area off the 2900 block of Old New York Avenue in DeLand. The investigation revealed that Scott was beaten to death with a beer bottle and a piece of wood by Harris. The suspect was held without bail at the Volusia County Branch Jail. According to investigators, the two men had exchanged messages on a dating app. Investigators believe that they had agreed to meet for a tryst before Scott's death. On April the 26th of 2021, a grand jury indicted Harris on a first-degree murder charge. Number 6. SHRADDHA WALKAR. The online dating service Bumble expressed its devastation over the death of SHRADDHA WALKAR, aged 28, who was killed on May the 18th of 2022 in South Delhi, India, by her live-in lover Aftab Amin Poonawalla, also 28 years old. They'd gotten together on the website and had been dating since 2018. Bumble reacted by stating that it was devastated to learn about this unspeakable atrocity and would stay available for the authorities at any time, according to an NDTV story. The investigation team from the Delhi police stated that it would also contact the dating service where Walkar and Poonawalla met. According to police, the couple had moved into the Murali apartment on May the 14th, 4 days before the incident. They both had jobs at contact centers and had been living together since the previous year, initially in Mumbai. The pair relocated to Delhi and spent a week living in a hotel due to Walkar's parents' disapproval of their interfaith engagement. Before settling into the rented home, the couple frequently engaged in tense disputes over infidelity. That was a major point of friction, and Walkar frequently accused Poonawalla of cheating on her. According to News 18, Poonawalla allegedly strangled Walkar in a fit of fury over domestic matters on May the 18th. The following day, after buying a knife and a new refrigerator, he allegedly went on to slice up her body into 35 pieces. According to the authorities, he began disposing of the body parts every day at 2 a.m. in the nearby forest region and other areas of the national capital, and continued doing so for the next 18 days. When the Walkar family reported her missing to the Manikpur police station in Mumbai, the incident came to light. Poonawalla was then contacted and twice summoned for questioning. He was identified as a suspect based on conflicting claims he'd made regarding his partner's bank account and online activities. In November of 2022, Poonawalla was charged by law enforcement with the murder. Number 5. Wendy DUAN. On the night of January the 7th, 2023, police found the body of 28-year-old teacher Wendy DUAN in the 1100 block of Oxford Mills Lane in the New Territory neighborhood of Sugarland, Texas. Officers were called to the location by a neighbor who reported hearing 4 gunshots. A 28-year-old man named Shavas Thompson was detained in Louisiana in connection with her death and was being extradited to Texas at the time. According to the victim's mother, the two had started dating only a week prior to the incident after meeting on the dating service Meet Me. The neighbor who dialed 911 claimed that DUAN had showed her a photo of the suspect just before they were set to meet. On March the 9th of 2023, law enforcement revealed that Thompson was found dead inside his cell while inside Caddo Parish Jail in Louisiana, according to ABC 13's report. Number 4. Dustin Barham. In the early morning hours of July the 25th of 2018, Dustin Barham, a 24-year-old with a learning disability, was killed after being persuaded to go to the Sierra Point Apartments in the 1400 block of South 107th East Avenue, Oklahoma, through the Meet Me dating app. He was shot in the leg outside the apartment complex and then tried to flee to his 1991 Chevrolet pickup truck for safety, where he was later discovered with severe injuries. When Barham attempted to leave the scene, his truck reportedly collided with another vehicle. After being taken to the hospital, he passed away. Police arrested 24-year-old Kelsey Lipp and 28-year-old Alexandria Reinhardt for the crime. During an interview with Tulsa police, it was discovered that 2 women had talked Barham into meeting them using a fake social media account with the intention of robbing him at gunpoint. Barham was shot as a result of a struggle for the gun. Reinhardt first told the officers she'd been the shooter, according to court filings, but later recanted. She then alleged that 25-year-old Delone Gay, her lover at the time, had shot Barham. On April the 3rd of 2019, Delone was apprehended and charged with first-degree murder and robbery with a firearm in a homicide. Reinhardt and Lipp were also charged with first-degree murder. Lipp was additionally charged with robbery, but because she belonged to the Cherokee Nation, her trial would be more complicated because the state couldn't prosecute her. Her case was to be transferred to tribal courts. The court system stated they only had 2 judges and needed more funds and a larger workforce to manage all the cases they were given. Number 3. Alan Philpeon Johnson III. Early on the morning of January the 9th of 2022, 24-year-old Alan Philpeon Johnson III was fatally shot 4 times by Asheri Gadsden, a 21-year-old woman he'd met through a dating app. Gadsden attempted to rob him inside her apartment at the 7600 block of Suzanne Drive, North Charleston, South Carolina, according to law enforcement. An affidavit indicated that at around 3:45 a.m., North Charleston police officers arrived at the scene and encountered a grossly intoxicated Gadsden near the driveway. She then led the officers into a bedroom of her apartment, where Johnson was suffering from gunshot wounds. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Gadsden told the officers that she and Johnson were alone in the apartment. She added that when she went upstairs to check on him, he was on the floor. According to law enforcement, Gadsden's level of intoxication required her to be transported to a local hospital. Gadsden told the police that she and Johnson had met online through the Tinder dating app, which led the officers to examine her cell phone. Through deleted conversations between Gadsden and an unnamed individual at the time of the investigation, it was discovered that she conspired with 2 people to rob Johnson at her house. Gadsden had left one of her accomplices a message saying the apartment door was unlocked moments before witnesses told law enforcement that gunshots were heard. Later, after Gadsden was read her Miranda rights, she confirmed being an accomplice in the crime. Jail records show that Gadsden was charged with murder and attempted armed robbery and was being held in the Charleston County Jail without bail. A few weeks later, on February the 28th of 2022, 2 additional arrests were made in connection to the case, according to Live 5 News. 28-year-old Joshua Latrey Mack and Zora Simone Henderson, aged 19, were charged with murder and attempted armed robbery. Additionally, Mack was charged with possession of a weapon during a violent crime. Gadsden, Mack, and Henderson were denied bond. Today's topic was requested by Marlon the Mighty Smith, Bella Rose, and Cosmo Girl. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Meshack, Cornwall. Sometime in the early morning hours of December the 17th of 2018, Ohio woman Shakira Graham, aged 24, shot Meshack, Cornwall, a man she'd met on a dating site called Plenty of Fish. Graham was arrested on February the 13th of 2019 at a Cleveland home on Fairmount Boulevard owned by her mother. According to the authorities in Cleveland, she and Cornwall had spent the night together at his Garfield Heights home on December the 15th of 2018. 2 days later, Graham went back to Cornwall's residence and allegedly robbed him of his gold 2009 Honda Accord, cell phones, guns, and television. She fatally shot Cornwall in the process and was subsequently charged with aggravated murder. On March the 4th of 2020, Graham was sentenced to life in prison with parole eligibility after 25 years. Before we move on to number 1, I wanted to let you know that we have our earlier video on when mail order brides go wrong queued up right after this. Keep watching if you'd like, of course. Number 1. Jessica Truliet. An internet date ended in bloodshed on October the 2nd of 2020 when 36-year-old Jamal Harris of New Orleans shot both Jessica Truliet and her 56-year-old father, Robert Temple Jr., in the back of the head. Homicide detective Stephen Keller filed a court testimony stating that the murder originated from 35-year-old Truliet insulting Harris during their meetup. She reportedly said to him that he did not look like his profile pic and added that he looked like a pumpkin head. A few days earlier, the pair had connected on Tagged, an online dating site. They then decided to meet each other in person. During a court hearing, Keller relayed that Truliet had told Harris that she had another date and that he had to leave. A male friend was asked by Truliet to come to her home and aid in removing the date who didn't want to leave. Shortly after 10 p.m., according to Keller, the friend declined to get involved. Investigators suspected that Truliet offered to drive Harris back to their rendezvous point in Marrero. Assumptions were made that she had taken her father with her as a precaution. Detectives suspected that sometime after 1:10 a.m., they were murdered. Eventually, Harris was apprehended in Avondale, Louisiana on October the 21st. In court, Criminal Commissioner Paul Schneider found probable cause to hold Harris and ordered that the defendant continue to be held without bond, according to reports by law enforcement today. Number 10. Anastasia King. Anastasia King from Kyrgyzstan was only 18 years old when she met 36-year-old Indl King Jr. from Washington State. Anastasia had been introduced to Indl through a mail-order matchmaking service. Indl, a University of Chicago graduate, came across as a charming man, but soon turned out to be a textbook abuser. He had initially made a good impression and won over Anastasia's parents, but after their wedding, he turned into an aggressive, controlling monster. He pressured Anastasia to have children right away. He also demanded she tell him her location at all times, didn't allow her to get her driving license, and told her he'd kill her if she ever left him. Anastasia was also forced to take up work as a waitress, as Indl had lied about his income. He reportedly funneled her earnings into his own pockets. Predictably, the relationship spiraled downwards, and Anastasia began contemplating getting a divorce. She'd been married to Indl for 2 years, which meant she could apply for permanent residency in the United States. However, Indl didn't want the divorce, having previously lost $55,000 while divorcing his previous wife, another mail-order bride. He plotted to have Anastasia killed, enlisting the help of Daniel Larson, a 21-year-old boarder who lived in their house. Anastasia was last seen alive in September of 2000. Upon returning from a trip to Kyrgyzstan, Anastasia was lured by Indl into the garage of their home, where he then grabbed her tightly. Larson tied a necktie round her neck and Indl strangled her with it. Larson later testified against Indl when offered a plea bargain for second-degree murder. In December of 2000, he led investigators to the site where Anastasia had been buried in a shallow grave. Indl received a 28-year prison sentence for Anastasia's murder. Number 9. ELENA BARYKINA. ELENA BARYKINA, a young Ukrainian woman, met David Sartin from Texas through a website promising Western men beautiful Russian and Ukrainian brides. Sartin and Barykina began seeing each other, with Sartin flying to Barykina's home country 6 times. He sent her tens of thousands of dollars in money and in gifts, such as expensive gold and diamond jewelry. He also helped fund her singing career. Anything she wanted, Sartin provided. However, when Sartin learned that she was cheating on him and sleeping with her former boyfriend, he hatched a plot to have her shipped over from Kiev in a crate. He planned to then imprison Barykina in his home and slowly poison her to death with lead. David hired who he thought were members of a Russian gang to do the job for him, but it later turned out that he was talking to federal agents, executing a sting operation. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Number 8. Oksana Makarova. Oksana Makarova, originally from the Ukraine, hit it off with Carl, a Florida physician in his 50s, at a mail-order bride mixer in the city of Odessa. Oksana was a single mother with a 2-year-old, and she was looking to ensure that her child had the best possible future ahead of him. When Oksana and Carl met, even Oksana's parents told her not to pass up the opportunity to be with him. It was only after the pair moved back to the United States that she would discover who he really was. Carl had pretended to be a kind family man who'd promised the world to Oksana and her son, but he was revealed to be a controlling abuser. He wanted children immediately, even purchasing ovulation kits so that he could track Oksana's fertility. He went as far as to dye Oksana's child's hair so that it more closely resembled his own. Carl soon began isolating Oksana from her family and friends and threatened to have her child deported if she didn't obey him. On one occasion, at a Walmart, Carl punished Oksana's child so harshly that social services were called. Oksana took the opportunity to tell them everything, and they helped her to escape the marriage safely. Number 7. Reina Świerski. Reina Świerski was a Filipino mail-order bride who went missing in 2005. She had recently married Gary Świerski, an American with a long history of abusing women. In 2008, hikers in Castle Rock State Park, California, came across a skull. 2 years later, it was identified as Reina's. Świerski's daughter confessed to authorities that she had aided her father in disposing of Reina's body after he'd strangled her. His daughter was just 19 years old at the time. The rest of Reina's remains are undiscovered, and Świerski was sentenced to 25 years in prison for his crimes. Number 6. Susanna Remirata. In 1991, Susanna Remirata met Timothy Blackwell through a mail-order bride catalog. After a couple of years, the pair was married in Remirata's hometown in the Philippines. Just 10 days later, the marriage ended in divorce proceedings as Blackwell had beaten and choked Remirata. During the divorce trial, Remirata, who was pregnant from a previous relationship, was shot and killed by Blackwell in the courthouse lobby. Blackwell was apprehended immediately and sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Number 5. Io. Io, a Vietnamese mail-order bride, married Chinese man Lai Bing Hao in Guangdong, China. Bing Hao had purchased Io for just over $4,000, and less than 1 year after marriage, Io gave birth to twins. Bing Hao's mother moved in with the couple to help look after the baby boys, but things soon took a turn for the worse. Io and 3 Vietnamese men tied up and strangled both Bing Hao and his mother to death. Lai Shi-hu, Bing Hao's father, discovered them. Io had fled with the twins to a nearby town and she was caught less than 24 hours later. She was arrested on suspicion of murder while reportedly attempting to sell the babies for $9,000 each. Number 4. Jerry Menzel. Jerry Menzel was 69 years old when he lost his wife of 43 years to cancer. He became lonely and eventually met 24-year-old Valentina, a Moroccan mail-order bride, online. Menzel brought Valentina to the US and proposed to her, but Valentina had other plans. She demanded that he send $32,000 to her brother-in-law in London. Menzel obliged and the two married shortly thereafter. Their marriage ended less than 2 weeks later and suddenly Menzel was in the middle of a divorce. He had to pay Valentina alimony and overall lost around $100,000. Valentina, believed now to be an alias, is said to be back in Morocco, and federal agents are investigating the incident, as it may be linked to an international organized crime ring. Number 3. Alabani. Alabani was a 26-year-old engineer from Ukraine who'd become the mail-order bride of an American man named Lester Barney, who was 30 years her senior. The marriage between the two eventually failed, with Alla filing a restraining order against Lester. She also gained custody of their 4-year-old son, Daniel. One day, Alla picked up her son from school and was strapping him into the car seat when Lester attacked her with a knife. She bled to death in front of her son. Lester tried to claim the murder as self-defense, but the court saw through his story and he was sentenced to life in prison. Today's topic was requested by Jeff Lewis, Brody Rumojo, and Prism Studios 001. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Emelita Villa. Emelita, a Filipino mail-order bride, met her husband through an agency when she was just 18. She was paired up with Jack Reeves, who was 46 years old at the time and a retired Army Master Sergeant. The couple went through 8 years of turmoil in their marriage before Emelita finally decided she'd had enough. She started making plans to leave him, but was murdered by Reeves before she got the opportunity to do so. Her body was found in Lake Whitney, a place where Jack's previous mail-order bride had allegedly drowned. In 1996, Jack Reeves was found guilty of the murder of Emelita, as well as having murdered his previous wife, Sharon, who was killed by a shotgun in what had been initially regarded as a suicide. Number 1. William Chase Hargrove. In April of 2017, the body of 27-year-old Anna Repkina was found outside the lumber town of Elsie in Oregon. Judging by her mangled remains, the authorities determined that she'd been killed via a shotgun blast to the head. The only lead available to the police was the name Kevin Thomas, found on a receipt in a takeout bag near the corpse. They followed up on it and interviewed the man in question. From that point on, a sinister murder plot began to unravel. Days before Repkina's body was found, Thomas had shared a KFC meal with 29-year-old William Chase Hargrove, who'd also asked to borrow his shotgun. The police uncovered that Repkina, a Moscow native, had been lured by Hargrove to the US with the promise of marriage. At the time, Hargrove was in an open relationship with a woman named Michelle Chavez. When it became clear that BARYKINA would be permanently moving to the US as Hargrove's wife. Chavez became jealous and gave the man an ultimatum, asking him to choose between them. Hargrove told Chavez that he was loyal to her even though BARYKINA, his fiancée, was still living with him. Chavez pressured him to get rid of the other woman. Consequently, on April the 16th, he took BARYKINA to the woods and shot her in the head. The murder weapon was found in his car, and cell phone tracking placed him at the scene. Hargrove was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. Thanks for watching. Would you rather date a killer online or have no internet access for a week? Let us know in the comments section below.